like we spend this whole week, the Cleveland Browns media, trying to paint Shedeur as a diva, as if Jason Lloyd's words, a locker room cancer. Y'all tried to put Shedeur in trade talks and then say, oh, well, nobody actually wants Shedeur. Y'all drug this man's name through the mud after all he's done for the past 6 months is show up and work and improve and get better. So much so that Ross Tucker, the Ross Tucker podcast, I don't know if y'all remember, this is the same Ross Tucker whose grandfather paid him money to take Deion Sanders' knee out. That's a real story. That's a real thing. He admitted it. He admitted that his
Cleveland media really spent an entire week trying to convince us that Shedeur Sanders is a diva. They used words like locker room cancer. They tried to push these fake trade talks just so they could say, oh look, nobody actually wants him. It's a total hit job. They've been dragging this man's name through the mud for months, even though all he's done is show up, keep his mouth shut, and outwork everyone in the building. It's reached a point where the hate is so loud you can't even hear the facts anymore. But if you look at what's actually happening on the practice field, the narrative is starting to crumble, and the people who hate him most are the ones having to eat their words. Look at Ross Tucker. If you follow football, you know this name
here, because there was also another clip where basically Shady is insinuating that Shedeur should go to the Falcons or the Saints, which I thought was crazy because you said he got bad coaching and you want to go to the Falcons. So I thought that was silly. And then he said the Saints. It's like the Saints. I think they got a quarterback. Like I think they got it figured out. Like right now. Like I don't think you want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they got Spencer Rattler still over there too. So it's like a lot of. You don't go from one crowded quarterback room to another crowded quarterback room. You say you want him to have a place, not to battle out with Shogun and all that stuff like that. If you really want him to have a clean.
He's been one of the most vocal Shedeur critics out there. But there's a history here that nobody wants to talk about. Ross Tucker actually admitted on his own podcast that his family had a legit blood feud with Deion Sanders. He literally said his dad or his grandfather, it doesn't even matter which one, had tried to pay him to take Deion's knees out when he was in the league. Think about that. Generational hatred. They wanted to off his career before it even peaked. So when you hear a guy like that talking down on Shedeur, you have to realize it's not about the film. It's about a grudge that's been rotting for 30 years. But here's the kicker. Even on the Ross Tucker podcast, the truth is starting to leak out. Nathan Zagura, who's basically the voice of the Browns, had to sit there and admit that Shedeur has had a very nice camp. That's the polite way of saying he's killing it. He's progressed more than any rookie they've seen in years. His pre-snap reads, his ability to process information, the way he gets the ball out, it's light years ahead of where he was just a few months ago. He's in the building constantly. He's the first one in, last one out. That doesn't sound like a diva to me. It sounds like a guy who's about to take someone's job, and the media is absolutely terrified of it. The reality is, this isn't even a real competition based on talent. It's a competition based on a massive, embarrassing mistake. We're talking about the Deshaun Watson contract. $230 million, fully guaranteed. It's the worst deal in the history of the sport, maybe in the history of all sports. The Browns gave up their entire future for a guy who has given them maybe 28% of the production they paid for. His body is breaking down, he can't stay on the field, and yet, they feel like they have to play him because of the sunk cost. They're trying to squeeze every drop of value out of a dry sponge while the future of the franchise is sitting right there on the bench, looking better than the starter every single day. You see the national guys like Shady McCoy starting to hint at what's really going on behind the scenes. Shady's got the inside scoop because he's tight with Jerry Jeudy. He knows what the vibe is in that locker room. He's out here saying Shedeur needs to get traded to the Falcons or the Saints just so he can actually play. It's wild because usually, you don't see former players advocating for a trade this early. But they see the writing on the wall. They know that as long as that $230 million contract is sitting there, Shedeur is going to have to be twice as good just to get half the credit. It's a rigged game, and everyone in the league knows it. Even the old-school legends like Joe Thomas and Richard Sherman are starting to weigh in. Sherman is out here saying the quiet part out loud, that if Shedeur keeps looking this good in camp, the Browns aren't going to have a choice. They can talk about the money all they want, But at the end of the day, winning is the only thing that saves jobs. If Shedeur is outplaying a 9-year vet who's making $50 million a year,
that Raheem Sanders weighs he weighed the same size as Jerome Bettis. Raheem Sanders is a good 245 pounds at running back. Real SEC dog. Okay? Arkansas legend, South Carolina. Hey, big Rocket Sanders.
Tight end,
boom. That's a pretty good block from a full steam guy who literally, and look, who are you looking for now? What are you doing? Y'all gonna piss me off. Y'all gonna piss me off. Not only do you just get...
How do you look the rest of the team in the eye and tell them you're playing the best guy? You can't. The pressure is building, and you can see the cracks starting to form in the front office. Let's get into the film for a second, because this is where the diva narrative really dies. There's a specific play from practice that everyone is talking about. The right guard completely whiffs. I mean, he got smoked like a pack of boots. He's meandering around, looking for his soul, while a defender comes screaming through the gap. Most quarterbacks would just take the sack and complain. Not Shedeur. He hits this dude with an ankle breaker that makes him touch earth. I'm talking about a grown man on all fours counting the blades of grass. It was a Hooper move. It was Allen Iverson on turf. That's what the scouts hate. They hate that he has that Hooper mentality. They want a robot who stays in the pocket and takes the hit like a good little soldier. But Shedeur plays with a different kind of edge. He's out there making defenders look foolish and then finding his tight end for a first down. The stats, the nerd stats as some call them, will tell you he's a rookie who needs to learn the system. But the eyes? The eyes tell you he's a playmaker. He makes the kind of plays that you can't coach. And that scares the SHT out of the people who want to control the narrative. You have to wonder why the media is so obsessed with the off-the-field stuff. They talk about the watches, the cars, the jewelry, and the celebrity dad. But when do they talk about the film? When do they talk about the fact that he's outplaying a guy who's supposed to be an elite NFL starter? They don't. Because if they talk about the football, they have...
in which you got 32% of the desired production as it, or sorry, 28% of the desired production as it stands. Right? No, I can't even get to you can't even get real deal football from Deshaun the last we've seen from him.
To admit they were wrong. They have to admit that the locker room cancer is actually the hardest worker on the team. It's easier to just call him a diva and hope he fails so they can say, "I told you so." But Shedeur doesn't seem to care about any of that. He's out there smiling, putting in the work, and letting his game do the talking. While the Cleveland media is busy writing their next hit piece, he's in the film room figuring out how to exploit the next defense. The transition from college to the pros is supposed to be hard, but he's making it look easy, and that's the most enable thing to his critics. They wanted him to struggle. They needed him to look like a rookie. Instead, he looks like the guy who should have been starting since day one. The real tragedy here is that the Browns might actually waste a year of this kid's prime just to protect the ego of the front office. They're so scared of admitting they made a mistake with Watson that they're willing to let a superstar sit on the bench. But how long can that last? How many games can Watson lose before the fans start chanting for the rookie? How many times can the media lie before the truth becomes too obvious to ignore? We're reaching a breaking point in Cleveland, and when it finally pops, it's going to be the most shocking story in the league. At the end of the day, you can't hide talent forever. You can smear a man's name, you can pay people to take his knees out, and you can bury him under a massive contract, but eventually, the game reveals everything. Shedeur Sanders isn't just playing against a defense, he's playing against a system that wants him to fail. And from the looks of it, he's winning. So next time you see a shocking headline about him being a diva, just remember who's writing it and why they're so afraid. The Sanders era isn't just coming, it's already here, and no amount of media SHT is going to stop it. If you think this is just about one quarterback battle, you're missing the bigger picture. This is about a shift in the league. It's about the Hooper style taking over the robotic style. It's about players who refuse to be put in a box. The Browns have a choice to make. They can cling to the past and the $230 million mistake, or they can embrace the future and the kid who makes defenders touch the dirt. Either way, the world is watching, and the truth is getting harder and harder to hide. It makes you wonder, if they're this scared of him now, what are they going to do when he actually starts winning games? Only time will tell, but the clock is ticking, and the media's lies are running out of breath.